get started.
Hey, good morning everybody. This is Tim Stauffer with The Register, and I'm here with Kurt Jackson of Yates Center. He's a life coach and motivational speaker, and we're here in the third of our conversations to talk about Mental Health Awareness Month and its importance. Kurt, do you want to introduce yourself any more than I've already done? Or?
I'm a youth motivational speaker, specializing in speaking into high schools and college markets. And then I do a lot of personal development and life coaching for adults.
So tell me a little bit about how you got into this line of work, because it's definitely not the norm. And I think it takes a pretty special person to find the right niche and talents, and it's a pretty special career.
Yes, it is. I never saw myself as a motivational speaker. If somebody would have told me, 5 years ago I would have been doing this, I would have said, you're crazy, because I couldn't stand up and say 10 words in front of anybody. And now I've spoken to thousands of students and helped many along their own personal journeys. So what really got me into this was, over the last several years, we just continue to see a lot of college students struggle. My wife has coached for the last 8 years in the college market at Allen and Neosho, and we just continue to see a decline with students' mental health and the struggles that they were kind of going through, the overwhelm, the anxiety, depression, things like that, suicidal thoughts and temptations. And so after seeing that for 4 or 5 years, I thought, somebody's got to do something. I mean, we've got to try to make a difference, because this is just getting worse and worse every year. And so that's what really started my journey into the motivational speaking side of it. It started off me just going and talking to them one day, and it just kind of grew from there. And so I used my past experience with my family struggles. I did lose a brother to suicide when he was 20. Whenever I was in high school, I lost a father to finally heart failure, but he struggled with alcohol addiction for years and years. And so I lost him whenever I was 24. And so I kind of used those experiences to relate to students on how I, kind of struggled with my own anxiety and depression and things like that with going through those events. And so I use my own experiences to really just kind of relate to them on a more personal level. I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a doctor, but I can relate to these students and to other adults that struggle with these things, because I've been there. I've seen it firsthand with other family members, and so I can really, kind of dive in a little bit deeper than, here's a 5-step process, that you need to stick with. I can actually kind of get in there and be like, I've been there. I know your struggles. I know what you're feeling right now. And so that's what kind of really got me started on this journey. And, it's been amazing to see the feedback and the questions that students and other adults have, because it is a stigma. There's so many people that are afraid to talk about these things. And, it needs to be something just as important as your physical health. We know about that, and this should be something that needs to be talked about, expressed about, and not, something that you should be ashamed or embarrassed of or anything like that. It's something that everybody has struggles. They might not be to the point of suicide or anything like that, but everybody has struggles, and we have to know how to cope with these stress levels and that anxiety and things like that. So.
When you talk with kids, adolescents, college students, what are you hearing? What are kids struggling with these days? What's on their minds? What's weighing heavy on their hearts?
It's a lot. I mean, a lot of everything. Every person's different. They don't have, the same struggles, but a lot of them, it's with the stress of time management. How do I manage my time, especially right now with the coronavirus, kids working from home on homework and stuff. How do I manage my time right now? Even when they go off to college, they're away from their parents, they're away from, teachers that have surrounded themselves, or that they've surrounded themselves with for the last, 10, 15 years.
That whole support systems
are gone.
Yeah.
And so they get to college, and the first sign of, something doesn't go right, they just shut down, and they don't know how to react to those situations. A lot of kids just don't feel like they have support from home, and it's crazy to hear that. But the more that I got out and actually started speaking to schools, and I see it on the back end, with my wife coaching at the college, I do see the issue with a lot of these kids not having that support system, whether it's their parents or the group of friends that they surround themselves with. They just don't have a really good support system that actually are helping them succeed and cope with things in the right way. So I would say every person's different. Every person has their different struggles and stuff, but really it's social media has a lot to do with it. I've got a lot of kids that are struggling with social media because they feed into what they see every day of the week, and that's a lot of social media, especially right now, stuck inside with the coronavirus. They're on their phones, they're on their computers and stuff, and so they are struggling with getting caught up in the whether it's the news that's going on surrounding the coronavirus, or comparing themselves to other students, and adults do this too. We live in a world where we see everybody's perfect life on social media and stuff, but they don't see the struggles that go on behind closed doors a lot of times, and that's what needs to be talked about and expressed about a little bit more. The struggles that go on behind closed doors.
So you had losing a brother. I can't fathom that, and then your father, and how'd you get out of that? How did you retool yourself, or kind of find the strength? I mean, what was your way out? I just imagine a lot of dark days. I mean, that's young, and especially when there is a stigma around talking about mental health, and it's man up, and it's don't cry, and it's if it's any emotion that you're gonna express, it's got to be anger. That's kind of the message that I got from a lot of society growing up as a young kid. So how did you find your way to health?
Absolutely. It was a lot of dark days. It was a struggle for years and years and years. I always say, especially with kids and stuff, we're a product of our surroundings. We are a product of, the people that we look up to, that we spend the most time with. And for me, coming from a family that struggled with alcohol, my brother struggled with alcohol, coping with his feelings and stuff whenever he was younger, and the situations that he came from. And my dad, my parents got divorced whenever I was in high school, and he struggled with the divorce. He turned to alcohol, and he was a very extreme diabetic, and alcohol and diabetes don't mix. And so that just took a toll on his health. He lost up to 70 pounds, pretty quick. And so seeing those situations and how they were dealing with those, I just kind of fell into that same mix. I fell into, well, I'm going to cope with these things by drinking. And a lot of people didn't know that I was going through these situations because I was so good at hiding it. A lot of people would see me, drink and go out in parties and stuff like that, but they didn't see why I was actually drinking and doing those things. It was to cope with a lot of the feelings and
stuff. Did you know that as a kid?
No, I really didn't. I thought, it was just normal because that's what I was exposed to. And so I didn't think that there was anything wrong. I thought this is what everybody went through. And as I got older and, into my college years and stuff, and after college, continuing to struggle with that stuff, I realized if I continue on this path after losing my dad, again, that kind of reiterated all those feelings and, me drinking and stuff, to cope with the situation. And I started to look back and say, if I continue on this same path, I'm going to end up just like my brother. I'm going to end up just like my dad. And so how can I start turning this around? And so that's when I started really focusing on my physical health, because my dad was a severe diabetic. I've lost other family members to diabetes and stuff. And then I started working on my mental health because mental health is a very common thing that my family struggles with. I've lost other cousins to this, and so it was something that if I didn't start taking care of those things, I was going to end up just like them, another statistic, and another bad influence on other people, because I can actually use my experience to help other people rather than just fall into that. This is the way it's always going to be. The victim mentality that everybody seems to, fall into. I'm this way because my parents raised me a certain way. I'm this way because the government did this to me, or my boss treated me like this, so I ended up this way. Well, that's a victim mentality. You have to be able to shift your mindset and take control of your own life. At the end of the day, nobody's forcing you to drink a drop of alcohol. Nobody's forcing you to lay on the couch all day. You have a choice to get up and actually, go for a walk or exercise. But really what really got me out of it was just taking control of my life. And so when I talk to students and I coach a lot of, other adults that are struggling with this, it's hard to get them to believe that, my life can be anything but bad. How could I possibly make my life better? And so I always say it comes down to the first thing you have to do is believe that your life can get better. Believe that this is not going to be your life forever. And it's hard whenever people hear that, because all they can focus on is 5 feet in front of their face. This is my situation now. How could it possibly get any better? But I talk a lot about goal setting and envisioning and where you actually want to take your life, because without a vision of your life getting better, you're gonna stay stuck in the now. And you want to make your life better, you have to be able to set yourself up with the goals, with the steps, with a plan to get you to a better life. And that's what a lot of people struggle with. They don't believe that they can actually, better their life. This is the way that my life is. I'm always going to be like this. And so I would say the first thing that they have to do is believe that their life can get better. I would say never give anyone or anything that type of control over you that says that you don't have a capability to turn your life around and create a better future for yourself. And it's totally true, because you are the key to creating a better future for yourself. You are the key to making your life better, not the government, not your parents, not your friends. It's up to you.
The factors that you control in your own kind of daily routine or the way you live your life, there's a lot there that can be changed.
Absolutely.
Even though there's a lot out of your control, there's still things that you can do every day to be well and to make progress.
Absolutely. Progress, Tony Robbins always says progress equals happiness, and it's true. You have to start with the momentum. You have to get momentum. It's like a train. You have to get the wheels turning in the right direction, but once you pick up that steam and that positive momentum going in the right direction, it's hard to stop. But if you do start to stop, it's really hard to get yourself back going. And so I'm really big on consistency, daily habits, routines, things like that to set yourself up for success, and controlling the things that you can control. We can't control the government right now. We can't control everything that we see on social media, but we can choose to not watch the news maybe, or choose to not feed into the coronavirus fears that are going on around us. We can control what we control in our lives right now, today. I can get up, I can go for a walk, I can choose to play with my family, spend time with my kids. I can choose to, drop down and do 10 push-ups right now to better my health. I can focus on the things that actually make me better, add value to myself, rather than feed into all this other these negative thoughts, negative emotions that are kind of swirling around us right now. We can really choose what we focus on, and I believe that we should be focusing on the positive things. A big thing for me is starting the day off right with a good morning routine. You should have, if you can't do anything else, you should be able to start off your day right.
Can I ask what your morning routine is?
It's well,
Because I know what mine is, and I don't know. I mean, mine's mostly just coffee, cereal, and
it's
getting ready.
it's been a process, and a lot of this is changing. Everybody wants, like I said, the 5-step process to better mental health and all this.
There's no one key to.
There's not. There's nobody is. Everybody's different, and so. For me, my morning routine, I get up, I go for a 2.5 mile run in the mornings, and then I do mindful meditation, which is a lot of breathing exercises, and that has been tremendous when it comes to mental health. That's, just really being able to calm your nerves down. And a lot of people, when I say meditation, they think, you sit with your arms crossed or your legs crossed and your arms out like this, and that's not. It's more of a breathing exercise, and I can do it in 7 to 10 minutes, and it really just calms you down, and it brings you back to focusing right now instead of focusing on what went wrong and all this other stuff that I can't control. It's really just bringing you back. So I do a mindful meditation.
So you're not. Can I jump in there? Because
Yeah.
sometimes when I let my mind just kind of relax and go blank or whatever, what I immediately tend to do, and I have to stop myself a lot of the time, is just I immediately start rehashing everything that happened the day before, or even the same day, and I'm critiquing, or I'm saying, okay, tomorrow I've got to make sure that I do this, and it's really hard to just just be in that space where I'm not worried about tomorrow and I'm not beating myself up over yesterday.
Absolutely, and this is where a lot of the mindset training and stuff that I do with adults and stuff, this is where a lot of it comes in, is being able to control your focus. And so when I say starting off the day with a good morning routine, you're controlling your focus on things that get you started in the right mindset, a positive mindset, going in the right direction, and not waking up and rolling over and grabbing your phone and looking on Facebook and seeing all the bad social media,
the gossip and the drama.
Yeah, and you get caught up in the day. You're caught up in somebody else's problems. You're caught up in, what went wrong yesterday. You're taking control of your life. This is my morning routine. This is what I need to do to set myself up for, a positive mindset. Because if you start the day off right, if you go through your morning routine and you have a positive mindset, say something bad does go happen at 10 o'clock in the morning, that's going to bounce off a lot easier than if you start the day off, angry and mad and just frustrated, and then that bad thing happens at 10 o'clock, you're going to blow up whenever that happens. It's just going to be the tipping point. And so it's a lot better if you start your day off right and you end your day right. I have a nighttime routine as well, and again, it just kind of makes me control and focus my thoughts on the positive things, the things that went well. And so I'll give you kind of a condensed version of my morning and morning routine. So I wake up, I go for a 2.5 mile run. I do my mindful meditation. If I can lift, I lift. Right now with the gyms closed, I have just kind of a gym at home and stuff where I lift. And then I listen to motivational videos, podcasts, things like that while I'm exercising. So I kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone, because I think it's always important that you add value to yourself every day. You grow your mind, you stretch your mind, you learn something new. And so that's kind of my morning routine. And then at the nighttime routine, so for a lot of people that struggle with anxiety and just kind of letting their mind wander, because when we lay down in bed at night, what do? We think about all the things that went wrong throughout the day, or we think about all the things that I have to get done tomorrow, or all the things that all the bad things, all the negative things. And so what I do is I lay down, and I always tell people you should start off by saying 3 things that went good for the day. 3 things that went well for the day. Not focusing on anything, all the bad stuff, things that you could have did better. 3 things that went well that day. You should always be able to name at least 3. Okay? And then I would say 3 things that you were grateful for. Okay? 3 things. You can, no matter how bad things may be, it might be something simple as, well, I have running water in my house. So 3 things that you were grateful for. And then really focusing on those things. So don't just say, 3 things, real quick and move on to the next one. You really need to focus, and this is where it's the mindset thing. You're training your mind to focus on those good things. You're intentionally, I am grateful for this in my life. You really have to focus on those things and really feed into them. You're feeding your mind, you're feeding into the positivity. So 3 things that you're grateful for. And then I pray. I understand that's not everybody's saying, but I always pray. And then I go into my goals. It's so important that you focus on your goals as well, because when you sleep at night, your subconscious, allows you to.
The brain's working.
It is. It's working. The majority of your thoughts and stuff, we focus on, from the day before. So if you sleep at night, your subconscious is working on, how do I achieve these goals and things like that. It's like when you watch a scary movie right before you go to bed. Well, you might have a nightmare about that scary movie. Well, if you focus on your goals right before you go to bed, you're going to, your brain's processing, how can I achieve these goals? How can I do this? How can I do that? And so I always tell people, focus on your goals right before you go to bed. And then I always go into my mindful meditation, my breathing exercises, and again, just kind of calming my nerves. And all that process probably takes about 30 minutes. And I can tell you, when I first started it, it's been an ongoing process. What works for me, what doesn't work for me.
I imagine it seemed like a lot of work.
It does.
At the beginning, why am I doing this much?
Yeah, but it takes practice. It takes practice and consistently doing this. And I can tell you, for me, I used to lay in bed for hours. 4 or 5, 6 hours. I would count dashes when alarm clocks were a thing. I would count the dashes on the alarm clock and stuff. And I'm also one of the owners of J&C Electrical. And so whenever I was working on big projects and stuff, so worried about, all the things I had to get done the next day, or stress, or what's going wrong on this project or whatever. And so it's really just taking the time to focus on what I can control, focus on what went well, and not allowing my mind to kind of wander into those bad things throughout the day. And so I go into the mindful meditation to end it. And I can tell you that 30-minute process, when I first started out, sometimes I don't even make it through 10, 15 minutes now before I fall asleep.
And you're out, yeah.
And so it's, again, just kind of controlling your thoughts and your focus.
I want to shift gears a little bit, and I want to ask you a question about what it means to be a man in today's world. I think a lot of the conversation around mental health and the stigma around it has a lot to do with definitions of masculinity that hinder a conversation around mental health, wellness, and just being honest and open about your emotions. I think it's something that we talked a little bit with Nathan Fawson on Monday about, but just this idea that strength means silence, and it means handling it on your own, and it means never reaching out. And so I think of you now, and probably what you represent to a lot of the kids you work with, a lot of it what you might be doing, and I'm curious to see, are you challenging what they kind of think of, well, that's not what a man is and does, and how do you kind of break that down to a kid who thinks, you know what, that's being soft, that's, and I can think of multiple terms that kids use. How do you reach across that divide?
Yeah, so whenever I give a presentation, I give the example of, whenever I was their age, my understanding was, guys don't cry. We work out. That's what we do. We don't show, our emotions, and
we punch a wall.
And so my dad had a saying whenever I was younger, and we were really big into sports and stuff, played baseball, and so his whole thing was, if a kid got hurt or something, he'd always say, well, rub it in the dugout, so you didn't let the other team see you hurt or see you cry or whatever. Well, just that little saying right there can make a big impact on a kid, and there's becoming more information and more studies out there that, those little things that you say, you might not even think about it, but that can have a huge impact on why that kid doesn't show emotion, or why he doesn't cry, why he doesn't come and tell you something. And so my thought was, whenever I was growing up, I never saw my dad cry until after the divorce and stuff, and and it really got really bad whenever I would hear my dad cry himself to sleep at night. That's tough. That's tough to hear a grown man cry like that, and I would listen to that every night. And so I started to think, well, this man that was, my superhero, hearing him cry and stuff, it's okay to show emotion. It's okay, to put yourself out there, to be vulnerable. And around this stigma around it, there's nothing to be ashamed of. There's nothing to be embarrassed of. I can tell you that I have more adult men on these job sites and stuff that come up and they'll talk for 2 hours about this stuff, but they can't talk about it to their wives or they can't talk about it to their friends. And I was the same way. I couldn't talk about it. I felt more comfortable talking to a stranger about these things than to our friends or to my friends.
I remember that in college, if I can share kind of an anecdote. I remember a guy, we were in the same dorm together, and I knew that he was going through a lot, but it was a brick wall, except when it was the weekend. And then alcohol was in the mix, and it was just he would sob and cry, and and it was just like it was his way to let the emotions out. It just kind of felt like there was so much pressure there, and it it wasn't healthy, but it was his only way, I think, of just finding some type of release or escape for this being bottled up. And I worry about that a lot with kids.
Absolutely, yeah. A lot of kids don't know what else to do, and they turn to pills or alcohol and stuff like that. We see it every year. We spend a lot of time in the hospitals and stuff with kids getting their stomachs pumped, or and so I go back to what's hard to see is the parent support and the group of friends that they surround themselves with. That support system is so important. We have some parents that we call up and say, hey, your daughter or your son is in the hospital, and they say, well, they've done this before.
That's a really tough call.
Yeah, it is, but it's frustrating when parents don't take it seriously.
They've done this.
They've done this before. We'll be down later this weekend or something, and that's really tough, from our standpoint, to see these kids struggle like that because they don't have that support. And it is more common now that I've actually gone out and spoken to all these schools and universities and stuff. It is more common than what I ever thought was happening. And I can tell you, I go into all these schools and stuff, and I cannot pick out a person that might be struggling with mental health because they're so good at hiding it.
It can present so well.
Yeah, it is, and especially guys. I have a lot of messages, that come through, whether it's on social media, emails, text, things like that. That might be struggling with that stuff, but they are afraid to talk about it, or how their friends are going to perceive them, or whatever. This is not something that you need to be ashamed of. I mean, I'm very open. We talked about it before we started this, that everybody wants to see the highlight reel and perfect and things like that, but on social media, I'm vulnerable about that stuff. I will tell you when we struggle. My wife is the same way. We have been openly, open about our struggles with whether it's anxiety or depression or, eating disorders, whatever the case may be. We're open about that. And more people need to be like that because there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Your physical health, your mental health is so important in your life that, they go hand in hand. So why can we talk about physical health but not mental health? And so I think from a guy standpoint, it's one of those things. You're not alone, even though you might feel like you're alone, or you can't, you're not as manly if you open up and talk about this stuff. It's just going to get worse if you keep that bottled in. It's just going to get worse if you let it, sit there and eat at you and bother you more and more and more.
Do you think it's easier to be a kid now than when, how old are you, can I ask?
Yeah, I'll be 32 in July.
Okay, so I'm 35. Do you think, so we're kind of the same, do you think it's easier to be a kid now? Or was it, I hear a lot about social media and the constant I wonder if the stresses are just different or if they're worse.
I think it's it's apples to oranges. In my opinion, right now the kids are struggling big time. I feel like probably more because they're constantly being fed the social media and the comparison. People compare themselves to everybody else. Oh, well, this person is going on a vacation. Why don't I get to go on vacation? Or this person, oh my gosh, they're so pretty, but they might have took 2 hours to do their makeup and put on 10 filters on their Instagram post, but yet that kid is still comparing themselves to, the other people that they see, or they see that, these big influencers or celebrities or athletes and things like that have all these great things, but, why am I, struggling? Why is my family like this? And so I think just the constant feed of that, comparing themselves to other people, it really takes a toll on the kids, and it takes a toll on adults too. Keeping up with the Joneses is really it's a real thing that adults struggle with. My neighbor got a new car, I need to get a new car, or why is so and so getting a pay raise and I'm not, or why is this family going on this big vacation and we're not. So I think just the comparison to other people is something that really adults struggle with, as well as students. Just that constant feed of comparing themselves to other people.
But in spite of this, there's hope. There's a message. I mean, when you speak to kids and to adults, and kind of going back to what you were saying in the beginning, there is this inescapable conclusion that you are in charge of your life.
Absolutely.
That no matter the circumstances that we're in, whether it be a pandemic or never-ending stream of snaps or tweets or Instagram posts, that you're in this, right? I mean, is that when you talk to kids, is that kind of
absolutely
the one thing you want them to walk away with?
Yeah, we can't always control our situation. We can't control, maybe how our parents raised us. We can't control, like I said, what the government's doing or the coronavirus situation. But we can control, how I choose to get up and live my day today. I can control my next step. We like to see this big grand vision of, this is my end goal, or this is my end destination. This is this big mountain that I have to climb to try to get over, this depression or this anxiety or something like this mental health issue that I'm going through. That's so hard I would never be able to get to the top of that mountain. But all we have to do is focus on that first step.
But I think part of that is it's hard to want to do that or to feel like the work's justified if you don't feel like you're worth it.
Absolutely.
To do that morning routine and that evening routine, to have the discipline to say, I can make something better of my life, I think that's hard to justify when you're getting, maybe from yourself, maybe from other people around you, but there might be that nagging doubt that, you're not worth this. Your life doesn't matter. I think that's part of what really hurts the process, is taking that first step to say, I matter enough to take these steps. My life is important enough to invest this energy and time in it.
Absolutely. And that's exactly right. The belief. That's why I always say you have to start with the belief. You have to believe that your life can get better. Until you believe your life can get better, it's not going to. So for your life to change, you have to change. For your life to get better, you have to get better. And so if you are stuck in this, this is the way it's always going to be. That's the way it's always going to be. And so you have to break that cycle and start doing something different. If I laid on the couch all day today and I feel bad, what's the alternative? Maybe I can go on a walk. Okay? So if I feel bad because I ate all this junk food today, what's the alternative? Maybe I eat something healthy. Let's see what changes if I maybe eat something different. And so if you continue to fill yourself with negativity or bad decisions, bad habits, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get bad results. And so for people that just say, well, man, my life can never get better, well, you have to believe it can get better. And that's the first step, like I said, whenever we first started, was you have to have that belief. You have to have a vision of, where do I want to take my life? If I'm not happy with my life right now, where do I want it to go? Where do I want to get to? And so that's when I talk a lot about self-discipline. And self-discipline to me is, getting yourself to do the things that you don't want to do, but you should do them. And so it's hard to get yourself off the couch. It's very hard to do that.
That first step.
Yeah, but you should get off the couch and go for a walk. You know that it's hard to go to the gym. You know it's hard to, eat healthy foods. But if you do that, it's going to, change the way your physical body is. It's really hard to get somebody to stick with that consistently. People try that stuff, but if it doesn't work within the first 10 days or 30 days, they quit and they go back to their old ways. And so self-discipline to me is the key. You have to continuously do that every day. I can tell you, I would much rather get up in the morning and hit that snooze button and stay in bed. But I know if I don't get up and go work out, if I don't take care of my body, if I don't set myself up for the right mindset, then I fall back into my old habits and stuff. And so getting yourself to consistently do that year after year, because mental health, I can tell you, you still have those doubts, you still have those struggles, you still have that anxiety.
This is a lifelong
It is for somebody that has really done that. And as adults, you can see that your struggles just continue. I mean, you have more problems. You have kids. You've got bills. You have, maybe you lost your job and things like that. Stuff like that comes up all the time. And so knowing how your body reacts to those situations, the things that you can do, I have a bad mood right now, or something bad happened to me. Something's triggering my head to go back to those negative thoughts. I'm binge eating, or I'm binge watching Netflix and stuff for 2 or 3 hours. Or 2 or 3 days for some of these people. I need to stop that right now and go back to, the good habits, the good things. And so knowing what triggers you on the bad habit route, or what triggers your negative emotions, and having a good support system around you that can help identify those things as well. So my wife, over the last, we've been together 8 years now, she's really good about picking up on, well, maybe I've had an off day or something, so she knows, I need to, maybe give him some space, or maybe I need to do this to try to help, turn his mood around or whatever. And so these are the things that it's a lot of trial and error. What works for you? I mean, like I said, everybody wants the cut and dry, this is what you need to do, boom, you're cured of mental health, conditions or whatever, but that's not true.
Work. It's work every day.
It is. It's consistent work.
It's a never-ending road, but I think at the end that I liked what you said earlier, that adding value to yourself every day,
Absolutely.
every single day, and I think I tend to get into the habit of just kind of coasting.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just say, okay, this is where I am. Things are good right now, and I can kind of, and then all of a sudden it's like boom,
Yep.
Something happens, and I feel caught off guard.
Yeah. So a lot of my presentation is Grow, Prepare, Live. That's what my social media is and stuff. And so I post daily motivation stuff, videos, things like that, just to try to keep that positive momentum with everybody every day. And I need that in my life, and so I know other people, can use that as well. And so what I talk about is growing from your past. The first area is grow from your past. That's overcoming the obstacles.
Mm-hmm.
You had this situation happen to you. Maybe it was last week, maybe it was 10 years ago, but you have to accept that at some point, and you have to be able to learn from that. You have to grow from that situation. It was a lesson that taught you how to be stronger. You're better for that. Don't see it as a negative situation. You can actually grow from that and use it as a learning tool, as a step to your future success, rather than weigh you down, because a lot of people see that as baggage when it's not. You got through that situation, you're better for it, you're stronger for it, you're smarter because of it. And then I go into preparing for your future, which is goal setting, seeing that vision of where you want to take your life, the places you want to travel to, the job that you want to have, the amount of money that you want to make. And really, that's where you get people to really start believing, hey, this is possible. I can do this. I can, take control of my life. I want to go be a doctor. I want to, be a coach. I want to, travel the world or whatever. That's when you start getting them to see, hey, I can do this if I put in the work, if I put the time into it. And then my last is live in the present. So that's where you really start taking action and doing these little things that you can do, managing your time, putting in the work to actually make that vision, make that belief become a reality, make your goals become a reality. And so not only that, but also in the present is actually being in the present. If your kids are playing, take note of that. Actually be in the room playing with them. We get so caught up on scrolling through our phones or watching TV or something like that, and your kids are playing. If you're on a walk, taking into the account that birds are actually chirping and stuff. And I find myself doing that. And I space out sometimes on our family walks and stuff, because I'm focusing on the birds and stuff. My wife makes fun of me all the time. She said, you're going to be that old man with binoculars watching birds and stuff. But it's just taking note of that. On my morning walks, I always take note of the sunset or the sunrise, in the mornings. Always look at the sunrise before I go back inside after my walk and stuff, because, that's something that it's beautiful. People always think, I got to go to a beach or I got to go to the mountains to see, this beautiful sunrise. Well, you can do that even here in Kansas. And just those little things, again, just shifting your focus to, the positive things, the good things, and really just being in the moment and stuff. And so,
if somebody wants to reach you, how can they? What's the best way?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Facebook or Instagram at Grow, Prepare, Live. You can feel free to reach out via email, kurtjacksonspeaker@gmail.com, or you can go to my website, www.kurtjacksonspeaker.com. Feel free to reach out. Anyway, I hope that you guys, follow me for daily motivation, videos, things like that. I try to post something different every day. So,
thank you for your time. I really appreciate the conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Well, thanks.
Yeah.